What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to part 2 of the least visited states video. I hope you enjoyed the first part. Judging from the stats, it looks like a lot of you did. Today's video gets us from number 5 to number 1, and it's interesting. A few of them might shock you, I know I was. Number 1 on this list I actually thought was one of the most visited states in the country. I was very wrong. I guess you learn something every day, right? Yesterday I learned delivery people don't like it when you play a dog growling sound effect through your Ring doorbell speaker. I won't be doing that again. Our travel and vacation options may be limited this summer when most of us do our traveling. And that's why I'm going to do this video next year and the following year to see how things differ from the pre and post COVID-19. But like I said in the first part, today's video is about those states that don't get many visitors and very few tourism dollars. Some states see around 50 million visitors a year on average, and as you're about to see, some are nowhere near that number. Let's see part 2 of the top 10 least visited states. Number 5, Vermont. Vermont, the land of maple syrup, Bernie Sanders, and Ben & Jerry's. Vermont is a strange little Twilight Zone type state. Not many people live there, not many people go there, not many people talk about it unless Bernie Sanders or Ben & Jerry's is mentioned, but it is one of the most beautiful states we have. Take a look. And that still doesn't bring many people in for a visit. I guess once you get past the undeveloped landscapes, Vermont doesn't have anything that jumps out at you. Sure, if you're jonesing for some world-class maple syrup, there's no better place. After that, what do you got? They have great breweries, like most states, a zoo and aquarium, like most states. Nothing terribly special. You know it's not a great place to visit when, if you ask someone what there is to see in Vermont, like one of the locals, they suggest covered bridges and a place called Dog Mountain, which is a giant dog park on a hill. There's a little more to that place, but yeah, it's a dog park on a hill. Vermont is one of the places I thought would have more visitors. I was so wrong. Maybe people are afraid they'll go into a diabetic coma after eating all things maple and some Ben & Jerry's. The thing is, I get the vibe the people of Vermont are fine with the way it is. I've never seen a Vermont tourism commercial. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that they only see 13 million visitors yearly. That's their average, 13 million. Number 4, Montana. This one didn't surprise me at all. Montana isn't for most people. 2/3 of the state is open prairie and really uneventful when traveling across. I've driven across Montana and I've taken the train across the state. I was in my room on the train alone repeating, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" like I was Bart Simpson driving someplace. It is a long day on the train crossing Montana. Sure, when you get to East Glacier and beyond, it's totally worth it, but yeah, bring a book. The Big Sky Country has over 700 miles of hiking and biking trails, the 7,000-foot high Logan's Pass, drive down the 50-mile Going to the Sun Road, that's interesting. They have over 130 lakes, and all the winter sports you need. All that brings people in, but really not that many. Whitefish and West Glacier are 2 of my favorite towns to visit in the country, but most of the state is like a retirement village. It's almost like Florida with nothing to do. Ask a local on the eastern side of Montana about things to do at night, they may start talking to you about truck stops. Truck stops. You should check out Whitefish if you do visit Montana, which has become a trendy resort town outside of Glacier National Park. It's got great skiing, and as one guy explained it to me, it's just like Colorado without all the lame asses. Yeah, those were his words. The people that do visit are here for the skiing and the national parks. Those are great, I love them. They just don't bring in the masses, and it's too bad. That western part of the state is beautiful and has a lot to do. It's just too bad 2/3 of the state kind of blows. On average, Montana only sees 12.3 million visitors a year. That's not a lot of people for a state this size. Number 3, Delaware. Now, this one isn't a shock at all. It's a very small state, ranked 49th in area and 45th in population, and it doesn't have a lot of reasons to visit. They have some decent beaches, I'll give them that. They got Dewey Beach, and they got the famous Rehoboth Beach, which they're nice, and then you have the scenic Delaware Seashore State Park. Solid beaches, but nothing else. Well, they do have Wilmington, but nobody visits there. Wilmington, Delaware, that place sucks. With a capital S. Honestly, I feel Wilmington's reputation of crime and poverty and everything else is a big factor in keeping visitors from coming to the entire state of Delaware. To be fair though, most of Delaware is beautiful and has low crime rates, for the most part. Wilmington appears to be picking up the suckage slack for the rest of the first state. That's their nickname, the first state. They got that name because they were the first of the states to ratify the Constitution, which is, kind of nice, but that's about it. Like so many other states on this list, Delaware doesn't have anything that gets most people excited enough to visit. They have the beaches, like I had said. They've got some breweries, which are good. Museums, like all states. And what else do they have? Nothing. What, no sales tax? That's nice, but it's not worth going out of your way to visit Delaware. I think it also suffers from that old real estate business saying, location, location, location. Delaware's location blows when it comes to tourists. They got DC and Philadelphia in the area, and people will go to those cities in a heartbeat before they'll even consider visiting Delaware. Now, if you do visit and you find yourself near Rehoboth Beach, get a bike and head down the Junction and Breakwater Trail. It's worth it. It's a really neat, long trail, and it's not like hills or anything major like that. It's just a nice leisurely ride through some really nice parks and landscape. Also, near Wilmington, there's a town called Glasgow. This is a neat little town, and they have the greatest city park. It's probably the best municipal park I've ever seen. If you know of a better one after looking at Glasgow's park, let me know in the comments section. That's how nice this one is. I'd really like to know if there's any better ones. Sadly, Delaware only sees about 9 million visitors a year. Yeah, that blows. Number 2, Wyoming. You'd think one of the states with Yellowstone National Park wouldn't be able to find its way onto a list like this. Well, it did, and it came in second. Yellowstone brings in around 3 million people a year. Yellowstone as a whole, though, sees about 4 million visitors, but Idaho and Montana have portions of Yellowstone in it as well. Anyway, Wyoming has a few other great spots like Jackson Hole and the Grand Teton National Park. Great things to visit, great things to see, but they can only bring in so many people. Most of the state is a lot like Montana. Okay, it's exactly like Montana. The eastern part of Wyoming has far too many miles of grassland and nothing. This is a great state to own some real estate if you don't like neighbors, traffic, mini malls, excitement, friends, conversation, people, or pretty much yourself. The good news is none of your neighbors will hear you start sobbing when the boredom really gets to you. They are so far away most of the time they can't see anything, much less hear anything. Wyoming is a great place for the outdoor types. Hunting, fishing, camping, rafting, and just about any other outdoor activity you can think of, it's going on in Wyoming. At least the western side of the state. The only real interesting thing on the eastern part of the Cowboy State is Devil's Tower, which is really cool for like a half hour. About an hour into your visit there, you start thinking, I should have listened to Briggs. Wyoming only sees 8.8 million visitors a year. That's a low number. Until you realize they have less than 600,000 residents in the entire state. Yeah, it's kind of sparse like I'd said. But if you ever do find yourself in Wyoming, Jackson Hole is worth the visit, and so is Yellowstone. I've been to Yellowstone a couple times in my life, and I'm going to go back, I'm sure, at least another handful of times before I, finally cash in my chips. And number 1, Alaska. And here it is. The one I looked at in disbelief. I couldn't understand why Alaska was the number 1 least visited state. I started doing research for the better part of a day because I knew the number was wrong. It wasn't. But how could a state with so many cruise ships see so few visitors? Everyone I talked to seemed to be going to or just got back from Alaska. I was fishing just last August on the Kenai Peninsula, and it seemed crowded. I mean, all along the riverbank, there's tons of people. It is a huge state with a lot of places to visit. Most of the towns are small and beautiful and, really inviting. There's some real, crap holes, but most of the state is really beautiful. You have hunting, fishing, hiking, boating, and good people. I know I bring up breweries a lot on travel videos, but there's a reason for that. The first thing is there's an alarming amount of people that judge where they might vacation by the beer scene. And second, almost every decent city you visit these days has a dozen or so microbreweries, and they're always crowded. If you do visit Soldotna, try the Kenai River Brewing Company. That place is great. While I looked into why so few visitors come to Alaska, I learned a few things. More than a few Americans think they need a passport to visit Alaska. They don't. Unless, of course, you're driving there, which not many people do, I don't think. Then you would have to drive through Canada, and at that point, you would need a passport. Only 42% of Americans have passports. So right there, a lot of people never consider the place because they either falsely believe they need one or they want to drive and they have to go through Canada. Another reason for not visiting Alaska is it's so far away. Even if you're flying, it's an all-day affair. If you're coming from the furthest state away from it, Florida, you're looking at a minimum 15 hours of travel. Some flights with a few stops get up into 26 hours of travel. That's a rough day. If you visit on a cruise ship, that's a great way to see Alaska, during normal times, obviously. During the pre-pandemic days, Alaska saw 1.3 million cruise passengers a year. They would probably see more, but the Alaskan cruise season is short because of weather, obviously. It goes from May to August, with a few ships going earlier or later, but a bulk of them visit during that 4-month period. That means Alaska sees over half their visitors in 4 months, because they only have 2.26 million visitors a year. For a state that big, that's a shockingly low number. Alright, so that is our list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. I hope you now know you don't need a passport to fly to Alaska. If you take anything away, I want you to take that away with you. Alright, don't forget all the links below. If you liked what we're doing here, please feel free to subscribe, give the video a big thumbs up, tell me what you thought about the video in the comment section without any profanity. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.